Good evening, Danville. Alan Schiltz here, Chief of Police, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we're here to make people's lives better. And we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. We've got the crime blotter, and we've got the traffic and all that, but this is a live show. So if you have a question, go ahead and ask it right in the the chat here, and we'll be sure to answer it. Want to move on to some of the evergreen things that we have. These are the things that we really want you to download or sign up for. First is the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. This is for those very rare events, but they could be pretty catastrophic if they happen. There is information in there on how you can be prepared prior to, how you can survive during, and then be safe after an event. Lots of good information in there. Also look for the Contra Costa County Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Plan. This is going to have some good information, but also sign up for the community warning system. In fact, we had a near incident. There was someone had smelled an odor of gas in one of our neighborhoods. Fire went out there and quickly determined that there was no gas. They have their little measuring devices and things that they'll go out there with, and they'll determine that. Well, if there was a legitimate alert, not only are we going to use Nixle, which will go to your cell phones, but we'll also use our community warning system as well. One of the things that's good about our community warning system is even if you don't sign up, we can actually target an area, and based on the precision location of cell phones in that area, we can actually target and send out. So whether they're opted in or not, we can get that notification out. So if there's a really critical alert, such as a gas leak sort of thing that's very big, then we can put those kind of notices out on our CWS system. In that wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide, it just talks about how to prepare your home, your family, pets, and all that, so that should there be something that you need to respond to, fire, any kind of an emergency, you can be well prepared for that. Go to the PG&E website. There's a lot of good information there. On the east end of town today, there was a power outage, and it affected quite a few residents. And so there's information on when the power is going to be restored. And they do a good job of getting that going. I know the power's been out a few times in my neighborhood, and I think all but one time it was back on when they said it was going to be back on. So it gave us time to plan. It also has information on what you can do to stay prepared. So should there be a power outage, you will be prepared and your family will be prepared. So I would encourage you to go ahead and go to that site. Link is in the description for all 3 or 4 of those. Just go ahead and download those. We do have an in-person event. So if you want to come out and say hi to us, you can just come out and say hi to us. We'll be out there. But if you want to help out some kids in need, we are helping support the Marine Corps and the Toys for Tots. And we're doing a Fill the Cruiser event Friday, December 8th. We're doing it in front of Marshall's from 1 to 5 p.m. So Marshall's is all the way on the south end of town, 3140 Fostoria Way, Danville, California. We just ask that you bring new unused toys in their wrappings and bring them down there. And by all means, you can just go right into our Marshall store there, and you can bring it in from there, and they will be happy to get the support. So you'll be supporting a local business and helping kids in need. So come see us December the 8th. All right, we're going to move on to crime in the area. You can always go to communitycrimeapp.com. That's where you can get updates. You can actually zoom into your neighborhood or neighborhood of your choice and get information as it is uploaded. It uploads several times a day. And you can also access the sexual offender registry from there as well. This is not bad. 3 collisions in a week is actually below average. And so that is very good. And the one thing I'm happy about is that there were no hit and runs. That means when people got into accidents or did the fender bender thing, they actually reported the collision that they had. We had 2 injuries in one property. The non-injury collision was on Sycamore Valley Road in Tunbridge. That's the green one in the middle. And that was on the 20th. And on the 22nd, we had an injury collision, and that's on the 1500 block of St. Helena Drive. That's down by Greenbrook Elementary School, down on the south end of town. On the 26th, there was an injury collision on Tassajara Lane in Camino Tassajara, and that's the one over by Sycamore Park there in the yellow. So on to crime. All right, not a bad week for crime, although if you were the victim of the burglary, you probably weren't too happy. So the burglary is the purple house in the middle. We'll get to that one. But on the 20th, a man stole merchandise from a business on the 3000 block of Camino Tassajara. On the 22nd, there was a residential burglary where the property was taken from the garage on Scotts Mill Court. And if you remember, there were actually 2 other burglaries similar to that where items were taken from garages. And those occurred last week. And we've got a very strong lead on that. And I hope to give you a good update next week on the show for those. On the 23rd, we had a theft of a license plate from a vehicle on Rutherford Drive. And then on the 25th, we arrested a man for shoplifting from Trader Joe's. So if you look, most of our crime was targeting businesses. Some of it was the license plates. I think this is the second week in a row where we've seen license plates taken from vehicles. This one, and I usually say we typically don't know where the theft occurs, but we will always take the report. However, in this case, and I don't know if the person was watching the show, I doubt it, but he actually paid attention to his license plate, and he knows that when he parked there, he had seen his license plate on his car, and when he went to leave, it was gone. So we actually had a pretty good window on when his plate was taken, and so that's good. So we know that plate was stolen here in town on Rutherford Drive, but kudos to the owner, because the tighter the window is for the crime, the better we have of a chance of solving it. So great job by our resident. And then on the residential burglary, again, some basic things. And I can't remember who asked it. I think it was Dina had asked this question a few weeks ago, and we actually answered part of it. The question centered around, what do you do if someone breaks into your home? When do you know when to react? How do you call 911? How do you do that? Can you text to 911? Those sort of things. One of the questions that she had as well were kind of, what is your top 5 things you can do to secure your home? And it was funny. She, I think, threw a similar joke in there. I have the joke where I say, I'd love to do all these things, walls and lights and all these things, but my wife won't allow me to live in Fort Knox. Right. So there's always the balance of the aesthetics of your neighborhood and home versus what you feel comfortable doing, for your security. So on your residence, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your home look as unattractive as possible to a criminal. And the irony is, usually when you make your home look very attractive to the neighborhood, it usually looks unattractive to criminals. So if you have a lot of overgrown bushes, overgrown trees, where the trees are really down below 6 feet, they're at like 4 feet, and your bushes are 5, 6, 7 feet tall, all that does is provide hiding spaces for people. And a lot of times people, if they're going to break into a home, maybe they'll pick a good hiding spot close to the home so that they can watch the home for a minute, see if anybody's inside, and then break in. So our recommendation is make sure your trees are trimmed up high to 6 feet. Make sure your bushes are trimmed to 3 feet or lower. And that'll give what we call natural surveillance. So people that are walking up and down the street, jogging, they'll actually be able to see into your front yard. The other thing is you can use, for nighttime at least, you can use motion lights. So my house, I've got a light right on the front door. I've got them on both sides of my garage. Then as you move into the back, I actually have motion lights around the house. So if, I'm in my room and I can see that the light's on in the backyard, that's telling me that someone or our dog is probably running around in the backyard. And it gives me cause for concern. But also, if you're the person breaking into the home, you're more likely to want to not be there if there's light. The other thing is if you can get cameras are usually pretty good. We actually recommend making them visible. And it's pretty easy now because a lot of them are the doorbell camera, and you see a lot of people using those style of cameras. And there's also like floodlight cameras. So my motion lights in the back of my house, they're actually floodlight cameras. So when they turn on, I just replaced the light that was near the door. So it was a pretty easy setup. But when they go on and the lights go on, it also starts to record the video as well. And so it's a good chance for us to see that. What we think and what we know from talking to criminals that have committed these crimes is often, not always, because we've seen video of criminals in action, often when criminals see a camera, they will avoid that location, but they'll also avoid the homes in that immediate area, because they know if they avoid your home, but they go to your neighbor's home, and then the police do an area check, because we do checks of homes near there for cameras, that we might catch their face on camera, and they don't want that. So we know that it has the potential to thwart some. And the final one, which is probably the most important, is we would recommend getting an alarm for your home. The alarm for your home does a few things. One, it provides us, should your home be broken into, it provides us with an exact time to look at. That drastically increases our ability to solve that crime when we know exactly when it happened. Couple that with a video of your front yard showing the car that they came in, we have a high probability of solving that crime. And when it comes to residential burglaries, we're usually in the 35 to, in some 6 months period, we've been up as high as like 70% on the solve rate. So our detectives can do a great job if they have a little bit of information. And that, to put it in perspective, I think the national case closure rate for burglaries is somewhere in the high teens, 16, 17, 18%. So we're usually sitting at 2 and 3 times that, which is awesome. With the alarms, though, the second benefit is what we typically see is if there's an audible alarm sounding, the penetration of the home, so the distance the person goes in the home, is usually reduced a great bit if they make entry at all. If they kick the door, the alarm goes off, a lot of times they run from there. In some of the ones that we've reviewed, what we have seen is maybe they kick the door, and if there's a item of value close by, like one particular one, there was an entryway table, and they had an iPad setting on it. So the iPad was stolen from the entryway table, and it appears that that's as far as they actually went into the home. So we know the alarms are effective. There was a study done by one of our crime analysis staff members from, I think it was November of 22 to about February of 23. And believe it or not, we had 13 residential burglaries during that time, which for us, that was a lot. And of those 13, only one had an alarm that was set. That's it. And so we think that if everyone had an alarm, that would probably be a pretty good deterrent. And without listing alarm types, you could probably do a search. They're actually they've gotten a lot easier to set up. You can have a company come out and do it if you want. But anecdotally, one of our managers from next door on the town side had just moved to a house, said she was interested in an alarm. All I did was give her a website to one brand that's not unlike the other brands out there. And she was able to easily have it installed by one of her family members. And they just went up and installed it, set it up, no big deal. It was all pretty easy. So, so Lou, I love it. Lou has a great message here. He says, if they kick his door, his Dobie goes off. So his Doberman is going to go off. And that kind of cues in. I think we did talk about this last time, is like, we have a dog too, and not much of a biter at all, kind of a cuddly dog. But for whatever reason, when someone comes close to the house, he's a barker. And so we hear him. So it's kind of an early alert for us as well. All right. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. If you're liking the content, give us a thumbs up. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe and send this to someone else. It helps with the algorithm and gets us more views and keeps us keeping this program going. All right, let's look at the arrest log. This was, I'm going to say, not a good week, right? I always say that a good week is when we make no arrests and we write no citations, because in order to write a citation, that means someone has to be doing a behavior that is harmful to someone else. So speeding, illegal U-turn, running stop signs, running stoplights, those sort of things. Like, we don't write tickets for good behavior. Maybe we should, right? Give out little gift certificates or something. But if we could write no tickets, that's a good week. If we could arrest no one in a week, that's actually really good, because that means no one's been battered. No one's been stolen from. No one has driven a car drunk and essentially created a condition where someone can die. So for me, as much as I love seeing active officers, as much as I love seeing our cops out there digging and finding crime, responding to calls for service, and arresting people that should very well be arrested for what they did, this is a lot of arrests for us. So let's take a look at what we had. On November 22nd, we had a man that was arrested for a DUI warrant. And this was on Camino Tasser and Tasser Ranch Road. And he was site released with a future court date. So this was a man that was not driving under the influence. He was contacted, found to have the warrant, and was notified of the warrant and sent a cite so that he could be on his way. And then on the 22nd, we did arrest another man, and this person was driving his car under the influence on the 1400 block of Diablo Road. He was site released from the station to a responsible party. On the 23rd, we had an arrest of a man for DUI on Railroad Avenue and School Street. He was booked in the jail, and ultimately, at the end of the DUI, he was booked for DUI for threatening the officer, for trying to bribe the officer, and felony is resisting arrest. On the 24th, we arrested a man for violating his probation and theft from a business on the 100 block of Railroad Avenue. This person was booked in jail. On the 25th, the man was arrested for stealing from Trader Joe's, and he was booked at the main jail. On the 26th, the man was arrested for reckless driving on San Ramon Valley Boulevard and Greenbrook Drive, and he was site released from the scene. And then on the 26th, we had another arrest of a man for DUI on Communitas area on Liverpool Street. He was site released. As I was reading this, a question kind of came to mind. You know, we've have a couple of different people that were arrested essentially for shoplifting. Per the law, that's if it's a misdemeanor, which both of these were, the default is they get site released. So what should happen, absent additional information, is these people are arrested on site and then they're site released. However, if in the officer's opinion, based on facts known to them at the time, they believe that offense will continue. In other words, they believe that that person will simply go to the next store, commit the theft again. So if they believe that theft will continue, then that is cause to book that person in jail to keep the theft cycle from continuing. And so that's why you might see on some misdemeanors, the theft ones, we booked them in jail because in the officer's opinion, based on facts known at the time, they felt like that was going to continue. The arrest of the man for DUI, if we have a person who's compliant, who's not kicking and screaming, who's not acting erratically, they're not too drunk, in other words, and we can release them to a responsible party, we'll release them to that responsible party so long as they sign the waiver saying they are taking responsibility for that person. On the man for the DUI warrant, if he knows he's got to go to court, it's very easy. We give him the site and we send him on. And oftentimes in the warrants themselves, it will direct us what to do, site release only. And so we follow the directions on the warrant. The rest of the man for reckless driving. So this was someone that was reckless driving. And reckless driving usually means driving in such a way that you're acting without due regard for the public safety. And so it isn't necessarily going 65 and a 45. It's usually multiple factors or driving in such an egregious way that would lead one to believe that you're not acting with due regard. Well, in that case, if the officer determines that the person is not going to continue to drive in that reckless manner and can be released, they can be released. If they get the sense that this is going to continue, that person can be taken to jail for reckless driving and the car can be impounded. So there is a lot there. All right, I'm going to look in the chat and see if there's anything else. I don't see any other questions. I do see a comment. Okay, and we'll cover that one offline. And Danville, I do appreciate you joining. We have our things that we would love for you, and we'll take a poll on the next one. But I really want to see some of you in person at our Toys for Tots. So if you can come join us, we'll be at Toys for Tots Friday, December 8th, 1 to 5 in front of Marshall's, and that's at 3140 Fostoria Drive. Just bring an unwrapped gift, or head on into Marshall's or Costco next door, buy a gift, and bring it down to us. If you can, make sure you sign up for the community warning system from the sheriff's office. Also download the wildfire preparedness evacuation guide. Head over to PG&E's website for information on how to be prepared should the power go out. And then also download the FEMA all hazards checklist. Those are checklists that I keep ready and handy, and I find them to be very good. I wouldn't recommend them at the beginning and end of every show if I didn't believe those were good checklists to have. If they were printed and in every entryway table in the town, I know we would be much better prepared should that accident happen. In fact, here's a little story, and I have a couple of staff members that call me the story chief. So this is where I find something and I kick off into a story. But when I was in the Air Force, I flew on AWACS. Part of going through flight school meant going to an FAA emergency class in Oklahoma City. What they did was they actually detailed these two different crashes. One was a commuter crash. It was a plane that crashed. The crashes, if you looked on them on video, were exactly the same. They were belly landings. They skidded to a stop, a little bit of fire, and then people got out. The difference between the two, one had a lot of casualties and some fatalities. One had absolutely none. What they realized was one of them, the one that had no casualties, no fatalities, was a commuter flight. So these were people that flew nearly on a weekly basis. And so every week they're getting there's exits here, here, and here. The mask will drop down, flotation device for a cushion. So they were hearing this over and over and over. So they were being trained on a weekly basis on what to do should this plane crash, right? The other plane was not a commuter plane. These were full of people that may have never flown before, flew very rarely. So when chaos hit, They had nothing to fall back on. So if you take these guides, this FEMA All Hazards Guide, and you take it with your family, and just once a year for 15 minutes, you flip through it. Most of the instructions are the same. Have food ready, have water ready. Check those things out. Make sure you've got the NOAA weather radio. You got that, you're ready. You're ready to go. Your family's ready. You put it in the drawer. You don't even think about it again. So go ahead and download those. Links are in the description. We're 1010, but we're always 10-8 and in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville.